when all the presentations are done, just so you know
okay.
that.
Yeah.
And we're live.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. We'll give it a minute or so before we start, so to help enable participants to arrive. But welcome all of you who are here already. Should I start?
I think we're still waiting for people to come in.
Suppose the meeting is open. Okay, I will start then. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this short showcase, where we will discuss the importance of including water aspects in forest and landscape restoration. I am Lotta Samuelsson. I am Senior Program Manager at CV, and I will guide you through this short session. There will be Q's and A's in the end, so you can put your questions or comments in the chat already now. Next slide, please. So this is the short agenda we have for today, and I will have some welcome and introductory notes, and then we have 2 presentations, and then we have Q's and A's. Next slide, please. I will briefly touch on these issues. What are the global hydrological challenges? What is resilient landscape? And why is the forest-water nexus important in this landscape? Next slide, please. You can just go on so we see all the 3 pictures. Thank you. So as probably most of you know, global water challenges, they are complex and massive, and also increasing and forced by climate change. They are very various and complex, but in short, you can say that we have either too much, too little, or too dirty water. And we really need innovative nature-based solutions to meet these challenges. And building resilient landscapes is probably one of the most cost-effective ways of tackling these challenges. Next slide, please. To find these solutions, of course, we need to know what is landscape and what is resilience. The area of a landscape can differ. It can be a river basin, it can be a watershed, or some other aerial demarcation. But no matter of scale, a resilient landscape have functional ecosystems and productive and healthy ecosystems, services to people. And these services, they continue to work and be healthy in the event of changes or shocks. And clean water is essential for all these ecosystem services that you can see on the picture. And to integrate hydrological aspects is essential for the landscape to become resilient. And essentially, it comes down to securing the hydrological cycle. Next slide, please. The hydrological cycle is actually quite simple. It's water that circulates between the water systems, the land system, and the atmospheric systems. But maybe the tricky thing is to ensure that the water that circulates is actually integrated into terrestrial systems and enable the ecosystems to become or keep being healthy and deliver the services that we as humans and all other people or other organisms depend upon. Next slide, please. And trees and forests, they are really, they have a very essential role in the hydrological cycle. Tree canopies and stems, they soften the velocity of the rain and help it to effectively moisturize the soil and recharge groundwater. Trees transpire and evaporate humidity up in the atmosphere, and also release small particles that triggers water droplets to form and fall as rain. And trees also influence air pressure and influence atmospheric moisture transport, as well as that influence local and global heating and cooling. The effect of trees on the water cycle will vary both on temporal and spatial scale. So for example, the age of the trees, the density of the trees, and the species, the tree species, will influence if they overall are water consumers or producers in the specific landscape. Also, water consumed in one area of the trees can and maybe reduce water flow, can fall down somewhere downhill from this specific area, and this may, so even if it's consuming water in this area, it will produce water in another area. So considering these physical interactions between trees and forests in the landscape and the water is important when managing and restoring landscapes. Next slide, please. Therefore, landscapes with trees and forests is super important for the hydrological cycle. But unfortunately, massive areas of forests have been either deforested or degraded or fragmented on the global level, leading to that the ecosystem services and the water cycle is hampered. But on a positive side, there are many global, national, local initiatives to restore forest landscapes. So this is really good, but the tricky thing is that the hydrological aspects are not always considered in these restoration efforts. And I would say that they are often not considered in the restoration initiatives. So therefore, this risks for both for the restoration initiatives not to be successful, but also it hampers the hydrological circle, and it actually risks to increase the global water challenges. And this is why CV has taken the initiative to develop a tool that we call the Water Smart Forest and Landscape Restoration Tool. And this tool will be introduced by my colleague, Malin Wennerholm, also from CV, Swedish Waterhouse. So please, Malin.
Thank you, Lotta. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, my name is Malin Wennerholm, and I work as a program officer at Swedish Waterhouse, which is part of CV. And I work with a focus on the connections between water, forests, and landscapes. And as Lotta just mentioned, water cycles and forest ecosystems are highly interlinked, and it's absolutely essential to consider hydrological aspects when restoring forest landscapes in order for restoration efforts to be both short and long-term successful. And up to this date, many forest and landscape initiatives don't integrate hydrological processes, and also already existing forest landscape restoration tools don't address water risks in the landscape. And other relevant water-relevant tools focus on agriculture, downstream, and coastal issues. And there are also several best practices databases for different types of land management, such as the Framework for Ecosystem Restoration and Monitoring Registry. And these can include many relevant practices for water smart FLR, especially in drylands, but they don't have water as a search criterion. So to close this gap, we are at CV currently developing the Water Smart Forest Landscape Restoration Tool. And the tool builds on existing tools related to resilient landscapes that CV Swedish Waterhouse have previously been engaged with in projects together with partners such as FAO, the Swedish Forest Agency, and IUCN. So next slide, please. And the project team working on this tool consists of Dr. Anna Tengberg, Senior Advisor at CV, Lotta Samuelsson, who you just met, Senior Program Manager at CV, Dr. Malin Lundberg-Ingemarsson, Program Manager and Team Lead for Resilient Landscapes at CV, who is moderating the chat here today, and then me, Malin Vennerholm. And we also get advice from our reference group of experts. You can go back to the previous slide. Within the Forest Water Nexus, including the Forest Water Champions Network, which is an expert group established in 2017 by FAO, IUCN, and CV. Now we can go to the next slide, please. So yes, moving on to the tool. The overall objective is to assess water risks and opportunities and to mainstream water into FLR relevant plans and initiatives, as well as implementation. And the goal is to optimize water ecosystem services and to ensure sustainability and productivity in restored landscapes. And the tool's main target groups are sectors, organizations, agencies, and practitioners involved in FLR or other relevant landscapes interventions at national, subnational, or local level. And the tool will also ensure that the intervention is participatory, inclusive, and transparent. And I will go to the how in a few seconds. Next slide, please. So the tool and the method are organized into a handbook with 6 modules. And the method can be used to incorporate water perspectives, both in the planning phase of new FLR initiatives, but also to ensure that water is considered properly in already existing and ongoing interventions. And it will help the user assess water risks and opportunities in FLR together with relevant stakeholders and to identify response options or solutions to these risks to strengthen water governance and actions on the ground. And the modules consist of tasks where the user will, as you can see in the figure in the next slide, task 1A and B, define the system boundary and current status of water ecosystem services. And then next, in task 2A and B, identify and select entry points for water in relevant policies and plans. And this can, for example, be nationally determined contribution plans, forest and landscape restoration plans, and integrated water resources management plans. And then next, task 3A and B, the user identifies relevant stakeholders within, for example, national ministries, NGOs, basin organizations, local communities, indigenous groups, and value chain actors, and will provide information and guidance on how to make sure that the process is inclusive of all affected and relevant stakeholders. And then next, the tool also includes a guide on how to best invite participants and to facilitate a workshop with the stakeholders previously identified, where the task user will go through modules 4 to 6, which consists of task 4, identify priority actions within policy mainstreaming, capacity development, and implementation. And next, in task 5, identify indicators for a monitoring and evaluation system to make sure that the actions implemented give the results expected. And this task is optional, but we still highly recommend it. And then finally, in task 6, developing a roadmap that will indicate what priority actions and next steps should involve. And the tool will take the user to the stage where you're ready to start identifying how to implement WaterSmart FLR on the ground by using existing tools and best practice databases. Next slide. And the tool is currently being developed, and we plan to test the method in 2 or 3 pilot countries this year. The ones we are in contact with are in Benin, which you will hear more about in a minute, Ethiopia, and Laos. And we plan to launch a first version of the tool by COP28 in December this year. And then we plan to keep refining it and launch the second version further on. Thank you. You can go to the next slide. Over to you, Lotta.
Thank you, Malin, for that very clear presentation. This is a tool that we really hope for at CEWI and with our partners that will be used and really improve how water will be included in the future when it comes to forest and landscape restoration. Thank you very much. Then we will move on and look at a case study where this tool will be tested, as Malin said. And I would like to introduce Ute Nuber, who is Program Manager for the Forest for Future project in Benin, working at GIZ. Please, Ute.
So, thank you, Lotta, that you have invited me for this session. I'm looking forward to present you my case of Benin. Like she said, I'm project manager of the country package from the Global Global Program Forest for Future. Forest for Future works in different countries, supporting African partners in the African Forest Restoration Initiative. So also countries like Madagascar, Ethiopia, Laos, and also Benin. So next slide, please. I just shortly present the project. The objective for our project in Benin is to support our partners on international, national, and local level in more and more implement restoration activities, and certainly within the catchment area of the headwaters of the Penchari and the Mekru River in the north of Benin. We have something like 5 years time with 4.5 million euro of budget. Partners are on national level, the Ministry for Environment. On regional level, we work closely with the Forestry Service. We work with local civil society organization and other decentralized services like, for example, the water administration. And one very important partner, which I will mention later on again, are the local water committees created already by a partner project. We have something like 3 outputs of this program. We work on national level. We help the partners to develop a national restoration strategy. On local level, we are mainly into the participatory planning of restoration activities and later on the implementation. And we have third output who works about development of value chain for non-timber forest products. And this is sure with the objective that the population finds as fast as possible a positive benefit from restoration activities. Next slide, please. So I will not go into detail because Lotta mentioned some of these points already, but I profit with this slide to give you the message again that when we talk about forest landscape restoration, that we really don't talk about the creation of huge, large monocultural forests. We really have a look at the entire landscape with all its different forms of use. We involve all different user groups like the farmers and the cattle keepers into the decision-making process. And when we talk about forest landscape measures, again, it's not the creation of monocultural forests. The main work will done via agroforestry systems and small private plantations for firewood and construction wood, also some community restoration and plantation. But we are also talking about the improved pasture management, so really working closely with the cattle keepers and find solutions for them as well, because we can say in the north of Benin, this is the cattle are the biggest negative impact on land degradation. Next slide, please. So with whom we are doing that and how we include water in our work in Benin. I think we are a special case because from the beginning, water was an issue in our project planning because finally we were called to come to Benin via another GIZ project, which calls AGO. It's a project working since longer time already on the integrated water resource management, including also restoration. And they ask us to start our work in Benin, to support them and to create together with them better synergy for the restoration in regard to increase the water availability and the water quality. So I will describe a little bit the area where we are working. Like you can see here, we are working in the north of Benin. Benin is a coastal country in the west of Africa. You can see here in red the Penchari watershed and in blue the Meku watershed. The Penchari watershed is the Benin part of the watershed, and the blue is the Meku, which is the part of the Niger watershed. The form which you see in blue is here more detailed in different colors, which symbolize the different water units. And we are working in the very south of this Meku watershed, what you can see down in yellow. And here you can see it again as a bigger card. We selected from this yellow water unit only the half because we wanted to have a zone, an area which is still to be handled by the project. And this area covers something like 36,000 hectares. It's a very degraded area. It's very important because it's the headwater of the Meku. AGO worked already in this watershed. They implemented or set up already the local water committee in this area, and these were all criteria why we selected this watershed. It is on generally the north of Benin, a very dry area with the problematic already that water resources become more and more scarce. The Mikru is not having water anymore all the year long. But when there is the water remaining season, then you have huge inundations, and with a quite degraded landscape like Lotta described, yes, this is more vulnerable against these inundations. And at the same moment, you have along the waters something like a protection zone of 25 meters on both sides of the river, where normally agriculture is forbidden. And sure, this is ignored by the population because sometimes they simply don't know that there is a protection zone, and they don't have any alternative than putting their fields next to the river. This means that the riparian forests are disappearing, and at the same moment you have a bad water quality because pesticides come into the water via these agriculture activities. Okay, then what do we do exactly now on the local level? We work together with AGO and the local water committee on the development of a restoration plan covering the whole landscape of this watershed. And we will support sure after the planning process where we have involved all the user groups. We will then support the implementation of these planned restoration activities. Basis on this is engagement of the population. The population themselves has to say, yes, we want to do agriculture, agroforestry systems or plantations.
Ute, sorry,
yes,
I need to
time is
inform
running
you.
out.
You only have two more minutes, and then we need
Oh
to
my
have
God.
a question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can see this, and then we can say we support the implementation of the whole watershed, but sure we focus on the riparian forests. Next slide. We also support the populations surely in finding alternative to the illegal use of the riparian forest area. Here, the honey production is a good way to do so because this you can easily implement in these mixed species forests of the riparian forest. And yes, we just realized now the last 2 years, we have to work again with the population on the question of the water cycle and sensitize them on the best selection of the species, because in the moment they have the tendency to select species which they know, but which are not necessarily water sensitive. Next slide. Because on national level, like I described, we will support the national strategy of restoration. And here in the moment, we are currently training the working group on national level. And Friday this week, colleagues from CIVI will come in and train our partners on national level about the water forest landscape restoration tool and about the fact what influence can have.
Okay, Jutta, you need to round up now. Sorry.
Okay, good. We ask ourselves, however, is that enough? And then we have a partnership with 3 different organizations. This is on the one way the IRD, the French Research Institute for Sustainable Development. With them, we work on local level about the question, how much is the impact on the outcome of water, so the water stream, and the income of water, the rainfall in the catchment area. We work with the Leibniz Center for Agricultural Landscape Research about all the questions around erosion, how much is erosion decreasing, increasing, and what is the impact on the sedimentation of the water stream. And like we mentioned already, we work with CIVI. We are pilot country for the water forest landscape restoration tool. CIVI helps us in the training of the partners and the sensitization of the partners. I
Thank you.
level.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
I'm sorry to rush you, but the time is so short for this session.
Yeah.
And we have a couple of questions in the chat. So I'm handing over directly. Thank you very much, both for our cooperation and for your presentation. And now I hand over to Malin, who will help us with questions in the chat.
Hello, everyone. Let me see if I can find the questions in the chat. Lotta, if you see them, can you please do the first? Because
okay,
I have been sharing.
Yeah, I see it. It's Ethel Mudenda from WWF Zambia. And she asks if we said something on if there is provision to learn, understand how the tool works or can be used. If yes, how can we get access to these provisions? So over to Malin W.
Yes, when we launch the tool, which is planned later this fall, it will include a handbook with guiding steps on how to use the method and how to use the different steps of the tool. So yes, it will include a guide on how to do that when it's launched.
And we will have it on our website, of course, but we will also send out in newsletters and with our partners to market the tool. So we will for sure share that. The next question, are you there now, Malin, with questions?
Well, I'm there, but I can only see this question. So please continue if you see another one in the chat. I don't know what's up with my chat.
Okay, so the next question is actually how do we define a degraded landscape? And that is a good question, of course. We don't have our own definitions on that, but we use the same definitions as WRI do. So it's a formally forested area. It's not completely deforested, but it's forested enough so that the regular forest ecosystems are hampered. So that's how we define a degraded landscape.
And I can see a question. Maybe we can. So, Malin, yes, but
one more question.
There is one question for Ute. In your project, you have been really great at establishing stakeholder participation. But how have you worked to establish this network of stakeholders? And also, have you managed to get collaboration between stakeholders on national level and on regional and local level? So, because that's always a very big challenge for us in our projects.
Yeah, Okay, maybe I have to point out again that we are quite new project. We started last year. This is all the time the first step to do for projects, to contact all the different possible involved people and institutions. Sure, our partner institution, the environmental ministry, helped us in identifying relevant partners. And I think we had a huge advantage that from the beginning we had the collaboration with the RGO project, because they opened the door towards the water relevant partners. I would say normally a restoration project would neglecting this aspect. And then it's a part of the IFR 100 initiative to create national stakeholder platforms, intersectorial, interministerial platforms. And here we were welcomed by the national partners to help them to establish this platform. And this is just in the beginning. They had, it makes something like 2 or 3 months, they had the first meeting. They start now to work together. So I have the feeling it was quite easy in Benin to get these different stakeholders at one table.
Thank you,
Fantastic.
Ute. I'm so sorry, and sorry, Malin, but the time is really out. We only had this really short 30 minutes. Let's continue the discussion. Thank you for all of you who participated in the session, our speakers, our facilitators, our audience. And if you are interested in this tool, please, do we have the last slide with our contact details that we could put on shortly? Because you can send us an email and we will make sure that you get any information that we have and when the tool is released.
Yes.
So in the end, I think there is,
I also posted my email in the chat. So
in the chat.
Perfect.
Okay.
Free to chat with us with the questions we didn't have time to tend to. Yeah.
Oh, that's a good idea. Thanks so much, all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.